Media Revolving Fund and an Opportunity Finance Board member. And she's going to provide brief remarks and then introduce our featured speaker. Thank you. Sure.
Well, I hope it's no secret to anybody who our featured speaker is, Mark Pinsky. Nice full room. This is great. Come to the Opportunity Finance Network membership meeting tomorrow morning, 8:30 to 11. Come to our Opportunity Finance Network membership meeting tomorrow morning, 8:30 to 11. Okay, good enough. I'm sure you all heard me. So thanks to Terry and to you all. And let me add my welcome to the conference. Can you hear me okay? Oh, there's too many chins in that view. So, Mark, I'm looking at you and looking at your beautiful shirt and thinking I should thank your daughter Clara for that, her great color sense. At the top of my list of favorite things about each year's OFN conference is the time we have to catch up with colleagues and friends in settings like this. At last night's opening reception, I sat at a couple of different tables chatting with colleagues and friends about this year's conference and doing a little reminiscing about Mark's speech last year. And everyone I spoke with remembered it quite vividly, Mark. One young woman who was across the table from me, the first table I was sitting at, said she loved Mark's story of helping Muhammad Yunus work in Bangladesh 30 years ago. And I didn't remember that part of the speech, but it might have been just me nodding off. So I couldn't recall it. But surprisingly, the guy sitting across the table commented to me that he'd been very moved by your closing remarks about saving that little kitten from the burning building, which meant a lot to me to hear about, but he assured me there had been no CPR involved. So I just gathered that I missed that part too. So this year, I plan to take really good notes. I've got paper with me. So I'd like to ask you all just to take a moment, let Mark walk up to the stage and make him welcome President and CEO Mark Pinsky of Opportunity Finance Network.
Shaw ruined my speech this year. Right? Good afternoon. Thank you for that warm welcome, and thank you, Shaw, for that introduction. I appreciate it. We're not inviting you back, Shaw. I'm sorry. It's great to see so many faces, and it's with pride and great pleasure that I want to welcome you to the Opportunity Finance Conference, The Power of Opportunity. It's our 22nd annual conference. I appreciate very much how far everyone has come and the effort and the sacrifice some of you have made to be here to be part of this event. The past year has produced signs of a seismic change that I will talk to you about today, and we have a lot to discuss. It's been a tumultuous year for many of you and for Opportunity Finance Network. This conference is intended to give us a chance to take a deep breath and pause to see how far we've come and where it is that we're going. In the next 30 minutes, I'm going to look back at our history and at another industry's history that inspires me and that I hope might inspire you. I'm going to shine the spotlight on a few of your colleagues who've been pioneering important innovations that hint at our future. I will explain what Opportunity Finance Network has been up to and where we are going. And along the way, in just a few minutes, with considerable trepidation, I'm going to tell you something that you will never forget. Something that I'm quite certain you will never let me forget. In 1858, the abolitionist leader, Theodore Parker, said that the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. 148 years later, we're still learning that the moral arc of the universe is long, but it is bending towards justice. We measure the results of our transactions in days and weeks and months and in years, but we measure our ability to transform, to produce structural and systemic change in decades and in generations. The power of opportunity, the theme of this conference, the power of opportunity is the potential to create change. It is both the capacity to help people and communities, and it is the ability to transform markets and institutions to make them fairer and more just. Power, properly understood, Dr. King said, is the ability to create social, economic, and political change. We are the power of opportunity in our words and in our actions. The power of opportunity is the words of our Declaration of Independence, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and the promises of our Constitution. But it is also the actions of the women and the men who have held our nation accountable for more than 200 years to the ideals that we aspire to. It's the stroke of justice in the Emancipation Proclamation, and it's the courage and the audacity of the Underground Railroad. It's the soaring words of Dr. King and the searing sacrifice of millions of people who, step by step, were the civil rights movement. The power of opportunity is the ability to give people a chance. The power of opportunity is an antidote for a culture of fear and hatred. It's the ability to remediate unequal histories and the commitment to skilled and determined people and places that economics and politics overlook, or worse, ignore. We must be the power of opportunity. We work in a transactional business, but we harness the power of opportunity, leveraging transformational change one deal at a time. We make inconceivable things real and inevitable. We make impossible things possible. We prove that conventional ideas about risk are wrong. We demonstrate that there are people and places, what I call opportunity markets, that are vital to long-term economic growth. We are changing the ways people, capital, communities, and policy work together. We are building an inclusive prosperity based on one economy, not two. And as we work, we are making, I believe, a revolution. Washington, D.C. is, as you know, the most powerful city in the world. What happens here defines global markets and market activity. It influences where there is peace and where there is war. And it decides which CDFI gets how much money from the CDFI fund each year. If you plan to change the world, no matter how you define your world, sooner or later you will fall under the gravitational pull of this city. I first set out to change the world in 1979, fresh from college, and I landed here. I worked for Ralph Nader for a while, and my main job was to represent Nader at planning meetings for the 1980 No Nukes concerts in New York City. I earned poverty-level wages, proudly, in the name of justice, to sit quietly in meetings with rock stars' managers. The music was really great, but the experience was not. So I went to work on Capitol Hill in September 1980 for an idealistic congressman named Ted Weiss. Great man. I took that job to change the world. Of course I did. But 2 months later, the Reagan Revolution rolled in, and I never got the chance. How many floor amendments could you stand to lose by votes of 400 to 35? No joke. The world was changing, but I was not changing it. I approached my work on Capitol Hill aggressively, impatiently, and often unrealistically. As a result, I got a nickname. Until now, no one other than my wife, who's here today, knows what it is. But I will tell you, and I will immediately regret telling you, because I want to make a point. I was known as Pushy Pinsky. But it gets worse. For short, they called me Pushpin. Now, I can tell from your responses that it surprises you that anyone would think that I'm pushy, right? But in retrospect, though, it's hard for me to believe that a kid like me could be perceived as pushy in a town like this. Now, in the many years since, I've learned from many of you and from others what it means to change the world. And as I've grown into my role at Opportunity Finance Network, I am no longer aggressive, impatient, and unrealistic. Now, I'm bold, demanding, and visionary. That's a transformation. But the point I want to make, and the reason I told you that, is this. 26 years later, seeing what has happened, I wonder now if I was pushy enough. Could I have done more? A couple of months ago, I went to see my doctor. The Grow, Change, or Die doctor I told you about in Chicago 2 years ago, and that some of you remember. I entered the office full of hope and expectations that my visit would once again produce a good story that would somehow give me insight into our industry. But you know what happens. People make plans, and God laughs. Your weight's good, my doctor said. Your blood pressure, too. EKG is normal. Everything looks great. Congratulations. Wait, Doc, I said. Can we go over that again? He was perplexed. That's it, he said with an annoying finality. You're doing well. And I thought to myself, gee, at least there's still the blood tests. But they came back normal, too. So I got myself ready to go on with my life, healthier than I used to be, but determined to push on to get healthier still. And so it was when I saw my doctor again, I was not expecting what he said. I've been thinking about you, he said. There is one thing. You're going to be 50 soon. There's a test I want you to get. I can tell you know where this is going, and I will spare you the details. There are days when I pine for the time not long ago when our industry was young and I was younger. Like our industry, I've learned that staying healthy is neither as easy nor as fun as it used to be. It's a simple insight into our industry, but it's an important one. A middle-aged man who came before me once wrote, "Age is a high price to pay for maturity." In 1990, my desire to change the world was unbowed, and I came back to Washington for my first conference with this organization. There were three things that happened at that conference that are significant to me as I stand before you today. The first is that our keynote speaker that year was Dr. Muhammad Yunus, who won the Nobel Peace Prize a few weeks ago. The New York Times quoted an economist saying that Yunus, quote, proved the impossible, that the poor were bankable. 16 years ago, it was inconceivable that the Nobel Peace Prize, with all the credibility and the power it conveys, would touch our field. But now it is real. The second thing that happened at that conference in 1990 was that our plenary session focused on why the mainstream financial system ignored us. At the heart of that conversation, as some of you might remember, was how we were irrelevant to the Federal Reserve System and it to us. 16 years ago, it was inconceivable that a Federal Reserve chairman would speak to us, let alone speak about us. At some point in the last few years, it became inevitable, and tomorrow it will become real. It's hard sometimes to see a revolution while you're making it, and we are making this revolution one transaction at a time. Yet, because we tend to see the world from the inside out, that is, we tend not to see the world, how the world looks at us, we consistently underestimate our own power and then wonder why others underestimate us too. Look back with me for a second across the arc of our progress. When we set out in the 1970s and the 1980s, we wanted to prove that it was possible to lend money to poor people and to get repaid. Conventional wisdom said it won't work. That is no longer the issue. We have helped to change the perception of risk in the markets we serve. When we started this organization in 1985, the membership held $27 million and provided less than $5 million in financing that year. we just dreamed that someday maybe we could organize as much as $100 million. That is no longer the issue. As an industry, we have crossed the $20 billion threshold, the $20 billion mark, both in assets under management and in cumulative financing. And most of the time we get repaid, so that's a good thing. When we set out to shape what became the CDFI Fund, we wanted to prove that we could play a small but substantial part in creating sound, responsible policy. That is no longer the issue. We produced a CDFI fund that not only was responsive to what we needed, but also introduced a new and now a proven model for federal policy that we'd like to see expanded. And when the 2000 elections foreshadowed the demise of the CDFI fund, we all remember that, we needed to establish that we had the political clout and the policy grounding to survive, if not to thrive. No longer the issue. 62 senators, including 29 Republicans, support our call this year for $80 million for the CDFI fund. Congress will reject for the 6th consecutive year President Bush's attempts to kill the CDFI fund. These things and many more things we've accomplished together. Our achievements are the product of numerous independent transactions that build into an undeniable transformational force. Our work has leverage. Our results don't just add up, they multiply. Now, the third thing that happened at that conference 16 years ago, in fact, it happened at that plenary session that I mentioned 16 years ago, was that conference changed the arc of my life. I sat in a room full of smart, dedicated people who were solving problems that no one else seemed to want to touch. That night I realized that I was going to make my career in this field, that the 80 people, yes, 80 people in the room that night, some of whom are here today, were the people with the ideas and the tools to change the world. I wanted to be part of that revolution that I saw taking shape. Our past has prepared us well for our future. Across our history, we have produced real, tangible gains, quality, affordable housing, jobs, businesses and vital services, education, rural water systems, and more that benefit hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of low-income and low-wealth people. And we have opened opportunities for people and communities in all 50 states and a growing number of Native communities. We now have the ability, the power, the opportunity, and the obligation to rise to another level altogether, to increase exponentially the number of people we benefit and the volume of financing we close year in and year out. The issue then, as we meet this week, is this. We must find within us the will to transform how we work together. We must adopt new financing systems that leverage our core competence of customizing capital to fit our customers. We must believe in our industry enough. We must demonstrate what my predecessor, Martin Trimble, who's here today, called institutional ego. Institutional ego is the capacity to insist, is the capacity to believe that other people think what we do is as important as we think it is, and to insist on bold new policies that support our transformation. We must expand our reach and extend our grasp. We must push ourselves and others further. We must meet structural and systemic challenges with structural and systemic responses. And we must continue to believe that that we will prevail because the moral arc of the universe is long and it bends towards justice. We are on the cusp of an opportunity to make something inconceivable inevitable, to make our work a driving force in our nation's future. The elements, I believe, are in place. We bring a remarkable track record of results. We have a broad and a deep constituency that grows every day. We're working in a policy environment that is starving for practical, proven ideas. We are making ourselves known in an economic environment that recognizes the critical role that the people and the places we serve will play in long-term growth. We stand on a strong foundation of people, experience, and balance sheets, and we are starting to see just starting to see it, as you heard this morning, a new emerging business model for the industry that can support the growth and expansion we will need if we are to respond to the gaping inequities around us. Oh, and then there are the elections next Tuesday. For at least the next 2 years, the federal government will be more responsive to our ideas and to our work, regardless who controls Congress. We have credibility, we have bipartisan relationships, and we have the power of performance on our side. But our government is still out of money, still distracted from and often blind to the needs of low-income and low-wealth people, and stretched too thin. There's an old Jewish proverb that says that if you're planting a tree and you see the Messiah coming, finish planting the tree. So my advice to you, no matter what the results of next Tuesday's elections are, is keep digging. We can and we should expect a friendly policy shift, but no one who works for long in this business believes in quick or easy solutions. There is no shortcut to salvation or no freeway to freedom. We wake up today and we wake up every day to lean our collective weight into the moral arc of the universe. Each of you in this room is part of the transformation, part of the revolution. Each one of you is helping to make our work a driving force in our nation's future. Just look around you. Look at the people around you. In this room are powerful new approaches, new systems, and new structures that will move us forward as an industry. The Calvert Foundation, for example, has overcome structural barriers to raising capital from individuals through its community investment notes. Lenders for Community Development is pairing development finance with the nation's largest IDA program, proving that the asset strategies increase the punch of financing strategies and vice versa. The Housing Partnership Network has created a collaborative capitalization approach that is bringing in scores of millions using new partnership models. Community First Fund is growing its impact using a highly productive financing model built around a small city strategy across rural central Pennsylvania. And the National Federation of Community Development Credit Unions is pairing small CDCUs with large mainstream credit unions in a partnership of high-touch financial care and economies of scale. And we heard this morning about the exciting and inspiring transformation among CDFIs here in Washington. We are expanding and we are transforming how we do what we do. We are finding new ways to organize and deliver capital so that the people and communities you serve have more choices that fit their needs. We offer our customers opportunities they simply cannot get anywhere else. The result of this transformation, I hope and I believe, will be a new collaborative approach to opportunity finance that makes possible annual financing volumes that today might seem inconceivable. In 2004, our industry originated more than $4 billion in financing. In our strategic plan from a couple years back, we aspired to tens of billions of financing per year benefiting millions of people. I expect that within 10 years, probably fewer, we can be originating at least $20 billion per year, probably more, to benefit low-income and low-wealth people. A new industry business model that can achieve these numbers, our new system for the industry, must wrap around our commitment to low-income and low-wealth people. It must increase each CDFI's capacity to customize financial solutions to its customers. It must increase your ability to put your effort and resources into delivering your products and services by reducing the effort and resources it takes to do everything else. Where feasible, it must leverage scalable systems, in some cases into capital aggregation, in other cases for risk management, and in still others for operational systems such as loan servicing. 3 years ago, Opportunity Finance Network called the system scalable customization. Dell Computer and Starbucks are familiar examples in the mainstream. We are now starting to see scalable customization become real in our industry. This new model enhances our current financing approach. It can never replace what we already do. It is a both-and strategy, not an either-or choice. We continue to require and we will continue to find large amounts of equity as well as flexible, low-cost debt. Our vision for a new Opportunity Finance Network that we first introduced in 2003 is becoming real. We are moving forward on new approaches to help you focus on doing what you do best, delivering customized financial products and services. In the process, we are transforming Opportunity Finance Network. Let me tell you about a few of the things that we're doing. The new Opportunity Mortgage platform we expect to introduce early next year will give CDFIs the tools to compete with predatory lenders in their markets. It does not matter whether your balance sheet is $1 million or $100 million. The fact that 50 of you have talked to us about participating and 20 of you have signed letters of interest to participate tells us that you're seeing the same thing that we're seeing, the same opportunities. We have capital commitments totaling $50 million for our first product. CDFIs will produce the loans. Our mortgage company partner will fund and service them. Socially motivated investors will purchase a piece of each mortgage, and a national credit counseling agency or program will support borrowers alongside any support that individual CDFIs might offer. Opportunity Finance Network will provide the marketing and the lead generation support. The pricing for our initial product is extremely competitive, and our fee structure rewards CDFIs well because we want you to do more. But we do not stop there. This will be an industry-owned mortgage platform, so CDFIs will directly influence the product development process. You will tell us what products you need to fit your customers. When we succeed with the mortgage platform, and we're confident we will succeed with the mortgage platform, we plan to leverage the relationships and the experience to support other types of financing. Our plan is to extend and expand the model that we're building steadily but incrementally. With key partners, we're developing a national financing strategy for manufactured home community conversions. Yesterday, Opportunity Finance Network signed a memorandum of understanding with the New Hampshire Community Loan Fund and CFED to work together toward a multifaceted national conversion effort. Resident-owned manufactured home communities ensure economic stability and the opportunity to build assets for a growing number of low-income and low-wealth people. The challenge, as many of you know, is converting investor-owned communities to resident-owned communities so that the people who live there can control their own economic futures. Our third major focus is policy. Tomorrow, at that annual membership meeting Shaw mentioned, we're launching a new policy offensive to bring new private and government resources to our industry. We are determined to make new capital flow for your use. We also have another, perhaps less tangible goal. We want to make opportunity finance an issue in the 2008 presidential and congressional campaigns. We're going to need your help. We're going to need every bit of your help, but we start with a strong base. We recently commissioned a national public opinion poll that found that support for what we do is broad and deep, broader and deeper than you might imagine. 78% of the 1,014 adults we surveyed said that they support the federal government playing a role in making sure opportunity finance is available to all Americans. 84% support opportunities or incentives for people to own businesses. 86% said affordable housing to raise families is an important national priority. And 90% said that all Americans, regardless of income or race, should have the opportunity to purchase or rent an affordable home or apartment. And it does make you wonder about the other 10%, but we must use our broad, bipartisan support and our Capitol Hill standing to pursue our new bold policy agenda. We are entering a rare policy moment that we must take advantage of. We will defend our core interests, the CDFI fund, CRA, new markets tax credits, and laws that limit or eliminate predatory lending. At the same time, we intend to launch 2 or possibly 3 bold efforts to bring hundreds of millions of dollars or more in new capital to the opportunity finance industry. We have been working with a diverse group of partners that ranges from the White House to CFED to the Heritage Foundation to governors and mayors to CDCs and CDFIs. I hope you will come to our annual membership meeting tomorrow morning at 8:30 for a discussion of the new opportunity finance policy agenda. We've been building to this opportunity. We recently published an economic explanation for our work that we already see broadening acceptance of all that we do in the policy arena. It counters the conventional misperception that what we do sounds great in practice but will never work in theory. The Opportunity Finance brand that we spent a little time talking about last year has taken root, and it's making it easier for prospective partners to understand what you do and how you add value. You know, in most industries, companies need to learn how to practice what they preach. In our industry, we're learning to preach what we practice. Outside, by the registration desk, you can see examples of 17 CDFI profiles we've published at no cost to members. We are prepared and hope we have the chance to profile the rest of our members as well. These profiles demonstrate a range of ways the new brand can work for you, as it is already working for your colleagues. We also, at this conference, are unveiling our dramatically new website, www.opportunityfinance.net. You can see it at our booth. You can watch for it at the annual membership meeting tomorrow morning, where it will be demonstrated, or you can simply visit the site. Finally, CARS, the CDFI assessment and rating systems, is all about making more money flow more easily. We are starting to see real value for CDFIs and for investors. CARS makes it easier and faster for investors to find, to underwrite, and to invest in CDFIs. To date, we've rated 22 CDFIs, and we thank all of you for participating, and 20 more have joined the pipeline. 18 investor subscribers received CARS ratings. Today, I am pleased to make 5 important announcements about CARS. First, early next year, we will publish the first in what will become a regular series of reports on the set of ratings completed to date. For example, the distribution of ratings by asset size, by age, that sort of thing. Second, a little later next year, we will, for the first time, publish on our website a complete list of rated CDFIs with their ratings. Third, we have introduced a CARS-rated icon that we will use and that rated CDFIs can use to show that they have been rated and to show their commitment to transparency and accountability. Fourth, we are expanding the investor subscriber base through a series of special offers to make CARS more valuable for everyone. Fifth, and finally, I have a major announcement about CARS and new capital. Earlier this year, Merrill Lynch CDC received a $93 million new markets tax credit allocation dedicated to financing CDFIs. I am pleased to tell you today that Merrill Lynch CDC will use CARS to underwrite the CDFIs it will invest in using the entire $93 million. This is a watershed commitment. The ultimate purpose of CARS is, of course, to make money flow with minimal friction. Merrill Lynch CDC's use of CARS, the first such commitment of its kind, has the potential to start a trend that will channel more money into CDFIs with less effort and less cost on everyone's part. The changes, the seismic changes we're going through are difficult, often confusing, and for some of us painful. I know from my conversations with many of you that we're making progress. I want to make a commitment to you today and a commitment to you every day that Opportunity Finance Network will create value for you, for the network, for the industry, and for the people and the places that we serve. Now that our vision is becoming real, we need to know what you're seeing and what you're thinking. Over the next 2 months, we're going to host a series of meetings to talk to you, some face-to-face in locations across the country, and some via our online meeting space so that everybody has a chance to participate. And what we want to know is we want to know how our strategic direction is affecting you and what you see coming down the road. I hope you'll join us. Sometimes solutions and inspiration come from unlikely places. I want to take you back 40 years to see how the transformation of another innovation changed our world. At first, you'll probably wonder about the comparison, but the story of the birth of personal computing helped persuade me that we will, in fact, succeed. How many of you in this room use laptop computers? Say. Did you ever wonder how computers ended up in laptop-sized machines or laptop-shaped machines? Or why every computer today emphasizes personalized interfaces? Or why there's a mouse to fit every size and every type of hand? In the 1960s, a man named Doug Engelhardt ran a research program at Stanford University that sought to develop something that was unheard of at the time called a personal computer for the purpose of expanding human consciousness and augmenting the human mind. In fact, the program was called Augment. No one was thinking about the personal computer as a business application then. Personal computers, which are the formative technology of our lives, emerged from Augment, shaped by an unbelievably fascinating mix of consciousness-raising forces that were there at the party at the time. Ken Kesey and his Merry Pranksters were involved in Augment. Stuart Brand, who created the Whole Earth catalog, was an active participant. There were, you might have guessed, an array of illegal and legal recreational drugs that were part of the practice. And those, as some of you might recall, that the saying about the 60s, right? If you remember the 60s, you weren't there, right? Involved in the process of Augment was a band called the Warlocks. How many of you know who the Warlocks are? That's right. They became the Grateful Dead. And they were mixing with Defense Department bureaucrats and software engineers to make the personal computer happen. There was another band called the Jefferson Airplane that was famous for its mind-expanding classic, Go Ask Alex. That was Alice. Don't ask Alex. Go ask Alice. Alice. Whole different meaning. And one of the engineers, my favorite little tidbit of this, is one of the engineers that was involved in Augment was someone who you may have heard of who was known as Captain Crunch. Who knows about Captain Crunch? Captain Crunch was the prototypical hacker. He was the one who figured out that a plastic whistle that you got in a box of cereal could break in to the long-distance telephone system and enable you to make phone calls anywhere in the world for free. Remarkable, remarkable guy. Legendary guy. And the pieces came together in 1968. In a fabled presentation that drew just a few hundred people to San Francisco, Doug Engelhardt demonstrated the first true working personal computer. It fit in a box small enough to sit next to the desk. It used the first mouse. It ran a graphical user interface. It had hypertext, and it accessed the Internet, which, as many of you know, was then called the ARPANET. One observer who was there later said that Engelhardt was, quote, shooting lightning from both hands. And for the small number of people who understood what they were seeing, Engelhardt launched a revolution that has changed almost everything about our lives. Yet in 1968, personal computing still had absolutely no obvious future. It did not win mainstream acceptance, arguably, for another 20 or 25 years. What Engelhardt did not and could not do was make the inconceivable inevitable. That fell to a man named Alan Kay, a member of Augment, who later led the Xerox Palo Alto Research Center, where everybody thinks the personal computer was invented, and where Steve Jobs reportedly got the ideas that showed up in the first Apple computer. Kay's formative contribution was a vision that shaped almost everything about today's computer industry and about how we use computers. Kay did not imagine a computer that sat next to your desk. Kay's vision was a truly personal computer that you could hold in your lap. Some of his early sketches are remarkable because they look just like the Apple laptop that I use today. It was 1969. He envisioned a customer experience, as business schools call it, that was unique, it was new, it was undeniably personal, and it was revolutionary. And around that experience, which was then little more than a fantasy, the computer industry as we know it came to be. Our vision for our low-income and low-wealth customers is that they will have a personal financial experience that fits them. We make capital fit the low-income and low-wealth people and communities we serve. More than our legal structures or our financing niches, this commitment to making capital fit our customers defines us. We do not require or we do not expect that our customers to become something that they are not. And so we've entered a new era, what we call the opportunity era. We have a chance in our lifetimes to change the world, to shape how financial institutions relate to low-income and low-wealth people, to influence how policy supports an inclusive prosperity, and to foster a nation built on real equal opportunity for all. We have the opportunity and we have the obligation to make our work a driving force in our nation's future, to originate orders of magnitude more financing annually than we will in 2006, to use our experience in the markets where we work to reshape domestic policy around an opportunity agenda. I believe this transformation is both possible and necessary. I believe it because we never imagined we would reach the financing volumes that we achieved and passed long ago. We never dreamed that we would offer the mix of products that we provide today. Most of us never believed that we would create the CDF iPhone, that it would be useful, or that it would survive this long. I believe that more than one person in this room is shooting lightning from both hands. I believe that we have the capacity to collaborate across our network in new ways to deliver orders of magnitude more capital that fits our customers. You came to this conference with aspirations and hopes, and you will go forward with clear opportunities, new ways of financing, new sources of capital, new ways of raising capital, new policy directions in a more fertile policy environment. You have made, and you continue to make, a revolution, one challenging transaction at a time. The moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. The product of your work is real, social, economic, and political justice, inclusive prosperity. You are relentless in pursuit of your separate organizational missions, but also our shared aspirations for a world where all people have the resources and equal opportunity to act in the best interest of their communities, themselves, and future generations. That is our vision. That vision might seem impossible today, inconceivable, but I believe it is inevitable. It must be. Anything else means that we, as a nation, as a society, and as a people, will fail. We all know that. Less than a month ago, my 15-year-old son, Nathan, asked me, "Dad, when do you think the U.S. will lose its leadership role in the world? All great powers lose it eventually." And he said when, he didn't say if. So I want to say to Nathan, to my daughter Clara, and to everyone else here today, that our nation's greatness and our leadership is not in our power to fight. It's not in our power to force. It's not even in our power to buy and sell. Our leadership is rooted in the reason we exist as a nation, simply equal opportunity and justice for all people everywhere. Those of us in the room and those of us in this industry have the opportunity, and our nation has the opportunity, to succeed. A wise rabbi once said that the entire world is like a narrow bridge, and the only thing that is important is not to be afraid. Our greatness as an industry, a movement, and a network is our relentless commitment to making the inconceivable inevitable by financing opportunities for low-income and low-wealth people and places, to prove that the impossible is possible. The important thing is not to be afraid. Our work is making a great nation better, one transaction at a time. But we are not done. The moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. I said 30 minutes ago at the start that I'm proud and pleased to stand here with you today. Let me tell you why. You are the sort of people who will bend the moral arc of the universe a little bit further and a little bit faster than it would bend otherwise. What I mean to say to you is, you're the pushy sort. Trust me, it takes one to know one. Thank you. Enjoy the conference.
a crust of bread when the last man died for the words that he said. When there's shelter over the forest